If a private habit could be quietly protecting your prostate, would you be willing to see it in a different light? I'm Dr. Raven Mehta. After more than 60 years in men's health, I've witnessed a painful truth. Too many men live in silence about their prostate issues, often unaware that the very thing they're ashamed of may be the key to their comfort, confidence, and long-term vitality. An older gentleman once collapsed in his own bathroom just minutes after what should have been a private, relieving moment. But that incident raised a question few dare to ask. What is really happening to the prostate when a man releases on his own? It may sound uncomfortable to talk about, but the truth is this: prostate health isn't just about age or genetics. It's deeply tied to how you handle your physical needs, and more importantly, how you treat yourself emotionally as you age. And the act you've been told to feel guilty about might actually support blood flow, regulate hormones, reduce inflammation, and prevent congestion, critical factors in avoiding nighttime urgency, pelvic pain, and the quiet anxiety so many men live with but never speak about. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the real science behind this topic, not to encourage or condemn, but to help you understand your body and make informed, respectful choices for your health. Stay with me until the end, because the truth you're about to learn may change more than just your physical well-being. It may restore your confidence and bring peace of mind back into your life. But here's a question most men never think to ask. What happens when blood flow to the prostate slows down over the years, quietly, subtly, almost invisibly? By the time many of my patients reach their 60s or 70s, they're no longer talking about ambition or adventure. They're talking about sleep interruptions, discomfort in their lower pelvis, or that odd sense that something deep inside just feels off. These are not dramatic emergencies, but they are early signs. And what many men don't realize is that long before symptoms show up, the prostate may already be silently suffocating, starved for circulation, burdened by stagnation, and inflamed by tension they can't explain. This is where a misunderstood act becomes a surprisingly powerful form of self-care. Gentle, intentional stimulation, yes, through healthy masturbation, can help restore circulation to one of the most overlooked parts of the male body. You're not just seeking pleasure, you're activating deep pelvic muscles, triggering rhythmic contractions, and sending a surge of oxygen-rich blood directly to your prostate. Think of it like opening a window in a stale room. Suddenly fresh air moves in. After weeks or months of inactivity, the tissue is nourished, cleansed, and revitalized. When done mindfully and consistently, this process becomes more than a momentary release. It helps your prostate heal, cells oxygenate, waste clears, inflammation retreats. And I've seen it over and over again in the lives of real men who stopped feeling ashamed of their bodies and started listening to them instead. This isn't theory. It's biology in action. And while this habit alone isn't a cure, it is one of the simplest and most natural ways to support long-term prostate vitality alongside hydration, movement, and proper nutrition. So, if you've disconnected from this part of yourself, believing it no longer matters, let me assure you, your prostate still relies on you. It's still alive, still active, and still needs your care. But circulation is just the beginning. What happens to the fluid your prostate produces every day when it's not released might surprise you even more. If this message resonates with you, type 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Now, let's continue, because the next truth about this tiny gland may challenge everything you thought you knew about aging. So here's the next question most men have never been taught to ask. What happens when the fluid your prostate produces isn't released? For days, weeks, or even longer. After years of working with aging men, I've learned that some of the most dangerous threats to prostate health don't shout. They whisper. There's no stabbing pain, no obvious emergency. Just a growing sense of pressure, urgency, or subtle burnings, so easy to dismiss, until one day you can't. And what's often behind these sensations isn't what you'd expect. It's not always infection or tumor, it's stagnation. Your prostate, though small, is incredibly active. Even if you're not sexually engaged, it continues to produce seminal fluid every day. But if that fluid isn't released, it sits, it thickens, it irritates. Over time, it can begin to break down, much like stagnant water in a sealed pipe. That's when chronic inflammation sets in slow, silent, but deeply destructive. Left unchecked, it contributes to swelling, discomfort, and even blockage in the urinary tract. But here's what most doctors never say. A gentle, natural reset may be one of the best defenses. Regular ejaculation, especially through conscious, healthy self-stimulation, can help flush out that old fluid before it festers. It's not about indulgence, it's about cleansing. It's like running clean water through an old system, releasing tension, refreshing tissue, preventing build-up. I've seen men reduce their symptoms, not with pills or surgery, but by reclaiming their natural rhythm, by respecting their biology instead of repressing it. What they once saw as shameful became a tool of healing. And this matters not just physically, because when you clear inflammation from your body, something else happens behind the scenes. Emotionally, even spiritually, men begin to feel like themselves, again more relaxed, more present, more confident. This isn't about turning back the clock. It's about removing what's been quietly weighing you down. So if you're watching this and something inside is resonating, know that you're not alone. You're learning to listen to your body, and that's powerful. Now, let's go even deeper. Because what this act awakens in your hormones and identity might be the key to your emotional strength as well as your physical freedom. So here's something even more personal. What if the disconnection you've been feeling lately, less energy, more irritability, a sense of emotional distance, wasn't just aging, but a quiet hormonal imbalance you never knew was happening? I can't count the number of men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who've sat across from me and said some version of the same thing. I'm not in pain, I'm not depressed, but I don't feel like myself anymore. They describe lighter sleep, a shorter fuse, less motivation. They struggle to connect emotionally, not only with their partners, but with themselves. And too often, they simply chalk it up to getting older. But there's more to the story. What's really happening beneath the surface is a subtle shift in your internal chemistry. Testosterone begins to drop. Cortisol, the stress hormone, climbs. And when that balance tips too far, it affects everything: mood, memory, immune response, sleep, and yes, your prostate. Because this gland isn't isolated, it's responsive to hormonal signals. And when your body is bathed in stress hormones and deprived of androgens like testosterone, inflammation rises, resilience falls, and healing slows down. That's where this overlooked habit becomes a powerful tool for hormonal and emotional reset. When masturbation is practiced regularly and consciously, it triggers a cascade of positive biochemistry. Dopamine lifts your mood. Oxytocin relaxes your nervous system. Endorphins ease pain and tension. And perhaps most importantly, there's A mild, natural increase in testosterone, your body's own reminder that you're still alive, still vital, still a man. This isn't about indulgence. It's about homeostasis. Because when these neurochemicals circulate through your system, they do more than just make you feel good. They restore balance. Lower cortisol means reduced inflammation. Better sleep supports cellular repair. And balanced testosterone helps your prostate function more efficiently and age more slowly. I've seen men transform, not just physically, but emotionally, when they stop seeing their desires as something shameful and start honoring them as part of their biology. When they give themselves permission to reconnect with this rhythm of release, they often describe a return to calm, clarity, and even confidence. One patient told me, "I didn't realize how much tension I was holding until I let go of it in private, without guilt. And that tension, the kind you hold inside, quietly, for weeks or months, can slowly harden into something more dangerous. When the body's natural rhythm is ignored, when the prostate's daily output is left to stagnate, that's when deeper dysfunction begins to form. Slowly, silently, deep within the tissue. So let's not wait for symptoms to scream before we start listening. If this resonates with you, type 1 in the comments, so I know you're still here and thinking. Because in the next section, we're going to explore exactly what happens when this quiet neglect leads to structural damage, what you can do to reverse it before it's too late. So let me ask you this: what happens when internal pressure builds in a system that was never meant to stay full? Not pressure you can see, but pressure you feel subtly, persistently, quietly, until one day it becomes impossible to ignore. Many older men I've worked with have described sensations they couldn't quite explain. Not pain, exactly, not an emergency, just a vague heaviness in the groin, a sense of fullness that lingers, discomfort when sitting too long. Most assume it's just another part of aging. But as a urologist, I've learned to see it for what it often is: prostatic congestion, silent, mechanical pressure inside a gland still working hard long after sexual activity has slowed. You see, the prostate doesn't retire when intimacy declines. It continues to produce fluid daily. And if that fluid isn't released, it builds up, it thickens, it settles, and eventually it creates pressure, subtle at first, but over time, enough to strain the gland's structure. Imagine a balloon being filled, little by little, but never emptied. It stretches, it weakens, it begins to dysfunction. That's what happens inside your body when ejaculation is withheld for long periods. This is where regular intentional masturbation can become not just therapeutic, but preventative. It allows your prostate to drain, naturally relieving pressure, improving circulation, and returning the gland to a relaxed, functional state. I've had patients tell me that just a few weeks of integrating healthy self-stimulation into their routine brought a surprising lightness to their pelvis, reduced urgency, and improved urinary ease. And that's not coincidence. That's physiology functioning as designed. When you honor your body's rhythm, it responds with balance. Urination becomes easier, sleep becomes deeper, and the chronic tension that once seemed inevitable begins to fade. More importantly, you're reducing your risk of long-term complications from chronic congestion to infection and even structural damage. But here's the crucial question: what if this pressure isn't relieved? What if the gland stays congested day after day, month after month? That's when a larger issue begins to unfold, slowly, quietly, but dangerously. In the next section, we'll talk about what happens when years of built-up pressure evolve into one of the most underdiagnosed, misunderstood conditions affecting millions of men as they age, and how you can stop it before it stops you. So here's the next question I want you to consider. What if there were a quiet, natural way to protect your prostate from growing too large long before surgery or medications ever enter the picture? By the time most men reach their late 60s or 70s, they've grown used to certain inconveniences, waking multiple times at night to urinate, a weaker stream, or that frustrating sensation of never fully emptying the bladder. These signs are often brushed off as just part of aging, but behind them often lies something more specific: BPH, or benign prostatic hyperplasia, an enlargement of the prostate that gradually tightens its grip around the urethra and disrupts normal flow. This condition doesn't appear overnight. It builds quietly, persistently, over months and years. The gland expands from within, stretched by stagnant fluid and fueled by hormonal imbalance. What many men don't realize is that this isn't entirely inevitable. It can be slowed, and in some cases, it can be prevented. One of the most underappreciated tools in that effort is something entirely natural: regular, healthy ejaculation. When you masturbate with awareness and consistency, you're not just releasing fluid, you're relieving internal pressure that, if left unchecked, contributes to the mechanical expansion of the prostate. You're maintaining a rhythm that supports proper gland function, and you're helping the body regulate testosterone and dihydrotestosterone, DHT, hormones deeply linked to prostate growth before they accumulate to problematic levels. I've worked with countless men who, by simply reintroducing a healthy, self-stimulation practice free from shame, were able to delay or even avoid medication, postpone surgery, and maintain better urinary health than peers their age. This isn't indulgence, it's prevention. It's giving your body the support it was built to receive, because let's be clear, the prostate was designed to release, not to store fluid indefinitely. And when you allow it to function naturally, it becomes less inflamed, more stable, and less likely to grow beyond its limits. But beyond the physiology, there's something even more powerful, something that speaks not to your body, but to your identity as a man. Because this habit, when practiced mindfully, doesn't just support your health, it reshapes the way you relate to yourself. And that, perhaps, is the most important transformation of all. Let's explore what that really means. Let me ask you something more personal. When was the last time you truly felt connected to your body? Not just functioning, but alive, present, and at peace with yourself. This is a question most men never expect to face. Not when they're younger. Not when they feel strong, capable, and grounded in their identity. But as the years pass, something begins to shift, not just in the joints or the muscles, but in how a man relates to his own body. I've had countless men, proud, dignified, strong, sit across from me and say, "I don't feel broken, but I feel disconnected." And often, that quiet disconnection comes with a silent question: am I still the man I used to be? Here's where we must challenge the narrative. Masturbation, often trivialized or buried in shame, can actually become a powerful act of emotional reclamation. When done with intention and without guilt, it's not about lust, it's about reconnection. A reminder to your nervous system, your hormones, and your spirit that you are still here, still responsive, still worthy of pleasure, touch, and care. From a medical standpoint, that emotional reconnection has very real consequences. A man who feels attuned to his body is far more likely to notice when something feels orphaned to act early. He is more capable of regulating his stress, balancing his hormones, and yes, supporting his prostate through healthy, rhythmic release. I've seen men who once felt invisible to themselves begin walking taller, sleeping deeper, and engaging with their partners not just physically, but emotionally. Not because of pills, because of dignity, and for the prostate, that matters. Reduced stress hormones mean less inflammation. Emotional awareness leads to earlier detection of subtle changes. Confidence isn't just a mental state, it's a physiological asset. So, if you've ever felt like this part of your life no longer matters, I urge you to reconsider. This quiet, private practice has ripple effects across your entire sense of health and identity. In our final section, we'll bring all of this together so you can see not only the science behind self-care, but the legacy of strength it creates when you choose to honor yourself a guy. So after everything we've explored together, here's the final truth. I want to leave you with, this wasn't just a video about the prostate. It was a conversation about reclaiming a part of yourself that far too many men have been taught to silence. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you not just for listening, but for being brave enough to confront a part of your health that's often clouded by stigma and shame. Because, at its core, this wasn't just about biology. It was about dignity, about standing back up and saying, my health matters, all of it. Let's take a moment to reflect on what we've uncovered. You've learned how regular, healthy self-stimulation improves blood, livering, fresh oxygen to nourish the prostate and reduce long-term damage. You've seen how releasing built-up fluid reduces inflammation and prevents silent irritation from turning into chronic pain. You now understand how this habit gently resets your hormonal balance, lowering stress hormones like cortisol while nudging testosterone back to life, restoring not just function, but confidence. You've discovered how consistent release helps avoid internal pressure and congestion, preventing that silent tension in your pelvis from building into something more painful. And perhaps most important of all, you've come to realize that masturbation, when practiced consciously, is more than just a private act. It's a form of self-care, a way to reconnect with your identity, rebuild your sense of wholeness, and remind yourself that you still matter. This is not theory. It's what I've witnessed again and again in real clinics with real men. Some were hesitant at first, others carried years, decades of guilt, but the ones who stepped into this new understanding with honesty and courage, they found healing, not just in their bodies, but in their lives. So if you've ever asked yourself, does this still matter? I'm here to say yes. It matters for your prostate, for your peace of mind, for the man you still are. And now, I invite you to be part of the conversation. If anything in this message resonated, type your thoughts below, share your experience, or just let me know you're still with us. If you found this video helpful, feel free to give it a like. And if you haven't yet, I encourage you to subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss the truth about your health. Told with honesty and respect, you deserve to feel strong, connected, and whole. And sometimes that begins with the simplest act of listening to your body, to your needs, and to yourself.